Did you perhaps come here for an interview after seeing this? At my question, she nodded silently. I run a small diner that rarely sees any customers. One day, a woman showed up, dressed in worn-out clothes, with a raspy voice and an elderly appearance. Oh no! She was holding a help-wanted flyer I'd posted a few years ago. But the truth is, with my current financial situation, I can't afford to hire anyone. Still, I couldn't turn away this woman who had come looking for help. Ma'am, would you be willing to work here? Oh. I decided to help this elderly woman who seemed to be in some sort of trouble. I even let her use the bath, and afterward. Thank you, it felt wonderful. When she opened the door, she had transformed beyond anything I expected. My name's Eric Owens, and I'm 30. In a small corner of town, I run a little diner called Harvest. Reality sure is tough. I muttered to myself with a sigh as I cleared tables. My diner is what you'd call empty. If one or two customers come by during lunch, it's a good day. There are often days when I go the entire business hours without seeing a single soul. Oh man. With things like this, I'll get nagged at again. And just as I grumbled, sure enough, a call came from that person. Hello? Are you finally ready to come back, Eric? I didn't say anything. The caller was my father. I didn't need to ask what it was about. My father was dead set against me starting this diner. That's not a real job. It's just playing house. It's about time you got serious. I stayed silent. He was always about work, 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 never once attending a school event of mine. I never felt comfortable around his stern face and intimidating tone. Not that he didn't have a single redeeming quality as a parent, but still. I'm hanging up now. I've got a customer here. I ended the call saying with those words, it was my best attempt at bravado to impress him. The truth was something I could never let him know. Today again, my diner was practically empty, and no customers were on the horizon. Excuse me. Whoa! I'd let my guard down and ended up dropping dishes on the table in surprise. At some point, someone had appeared at the entrance. The reason I was so puzzled was because the person looked odd. A brown shawl pulled low over her head, covering her hair and face. Despite it already being early summer, she was wearing a spring coat, completely tattered. Her voice was frail and hoarse, and her back was hunched. Upon closer look, her hands and feet were trembling. Are you all right, ma'am? I couldn't help but ask out of concern. I'm, cough. Oh, hang on. I'll bring you some water. As the woman started coughing, I quickly fetched a glass of water. Supporting her arm and gently rubbing her back, I helped her drink slowly. Thank you. As she seemed to calm down a bit, I took a closer look at her. Could she be an elderly person who got lost? Or maybe her shaking hands and feet were due to poor health. Possibly homeless. This. Suddenly, she rummaged through her coat pocket. In front of me, she unfolded a crumpled sheet of paper. Please, take a look at this. Oh. Seeing this, I was speechless with surprise. The paper she showed me was surprisingly a job flyer. It was the one I'd handed out half a year ago when I first opened this diner. Did you come here after seeing this? She didn't say anything. At my question, she simply nodded in silence. What I truly felt inside was, this could be trouble. I'm so sorry, this flyer is from a while back. We're not hiring anymore. Oh. When I told her the truth, she let out a small gasp. Her mouth moved as if she wanted to say something, but her sore throat seemed to hold her back. Eventually, she looked down, defeated. For now, please take a seat. Would you like some warm tea? Seeing her so disappointed, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy and wanted to do something for her. Are you hungry? She was silent. She walked unsteadily, hesitantly taking a seat near the entrance. As I asked what to cook, she didn't answer, keeping her head down, But then, a loud sound filled the room. She was surprised. Embarrassed, she quickly pressed her stomach, which had just rumbled loudly. It was clear she was quite hungry, likely homeless, after all. She might have been rejected by other places and saw that flyer as her last hope. "Ma'am, after you've eaten, would you like to take a bath? Oh, I live nearby. Please come over." Since I couldn't hire her in my current financial state, it was the least I could do. And so, I took this worn-down elderly woman back to my apartment. Or at least, that was the plan. "Who are you?" It was like watching an illusion, where someone enters a box and emerges completely transformed. When she opened the bathroom door, I was stunned. "Thank you for the bath. It's been a while, and it felt amazing." Her voice was now clearer, thanks to the steam. Her voice still held a hint of strain, but the person standing before me, dressed in a precariously revealing outfit, was a young woman. Realizing my gaze, she shifted uncomfortably, fidgeting nervously. The shirt I lent her should have been big enough, but as she straightened her back, I realized just how surprisingly tall she was. The shirt barely covered her, almost revealing her new underwear. As she tugged at the hem to hide it, I noticed her disheveled hair and rough skin, as well as her sunken cheeks, yet even so, she was undeniably beautiful. You've given me food and a bath. I know it's a lot to ask, but could I ask for something else?" "Yes. Anything you need." "Thank you, then. Could you lend me something to wear on the bottom, and an outer layer, too?" she asked, her face turning red, and I couldn't help but glance at her chest. Her shirt looked ready to pop a button from the tension. "Oh, I'm sorry. I'll get them right away." I bolted to the closet and grabbed the largest pair of pants and hoodie I could find. "Sorry about that. I thought you'd be, smaller." Sitting across from her at the kitchen table, I bowed my head apologetically. I had no idea she'd be so well built. And she was not an old woman at all, but a young woman around my age. Just minutes earlier, I was thinking, a quick trip to the convenience store for underwear should be fine. My observational skills were embarrassingly lacking. I felt too sheepish to lift my head until I heard her start to giggle. Oh, Eric, you still haven't realized, have you?" "What?" I looked up, and there she was, smiling as she pointed to herself. "It's me, Mia. It's been, 14 years since we graduated." No way. This was the most shocking moment of the day. The young beauty I'd mistaken for an old lady turned out to be my high school classmate. Mia, as in, that Mia. "Yes. I'm so glad you finally recognized me. Though I just got my voice back too." Her voice had been strained from staying outside for so long. And, weakened by hunger, she'd barely had the strength to speak. "Mia." Mia Harrison smiled that same slightly awkward smile she used to have back then. "Outside, what do you mean, Mia?" "Well, a few things happened, and I don't exactly have a home right now." "What?" I couldn't believe a classmate of mine was in such a situation. Surprised, I was about to press her for details when I leaned forward in my seat, and she laughed softly, saying, "This is starting to feel like an interrogation. You even served me food just now." "Oh, sorry, I got carried away. But really, you opened a diner, just like you dreamed. You made it, Eric." Mia looked up at me, her eyes warm with a gentle smile. Seeing that mature expression made my heart skip a beat, and I suddenly remembered the taste of fried chicken. "Hey, would you mind if I ate with you here?" The one who spoke to me while I was eating my lunch was a well-known beauty in school, admired for her cheerful personality and popularity. It was the first time I'd ever spoken face-to-face with a female classmate. "Wow, the breeze feels great. Why doesn't anyone else eat on the rooftop?" "Well, technically it's off limits." "No way." "Then, This place will be our little secret spot," Mia had whispered with a mischievous tone, and my 16-year-old self suddenly felt guilty. The reason I was sneaking up to the off-limits rooftop in the first place was because I didn't want to eat lunch with my classmates. "Take your lunch with you," my father said this morning as he left ahead of me, with his usual blank expression. Back in school, my dad was the one who packed my lunch, without understanding how much effort it took. I just thought it was embarrassing. "Wow, that looks amazing." "What?" Before I realized, Mia had gotten close enough that her forehead nearly touched mine. She was peeking into my lunchbox, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Don't look." "Why not?" "That fried chicken looks delicious." "That's exactly the problem." "What?" Whenever my dad packed my lunch, it always included fried chicken. The box was neatly divided in half, rice on one side and fried chicken on the other. That was it. Eric's lunch is kinda funny. Ever since some classmates laughed at it, I had hated eating lunch in front of others. But Mia didn't laugh. "Fried chicken, oh, lucky you." She stared at my lunchbox, practically drooling. "Do you like fried chicken?" "Yeah. I love it." "But..." Suddenly, her excitement faded as she opened up her own lunchbox. Then she lifted the lid for me to see. Whoa! This time, I was the one staring. There were spinach salad and stir-fried carrots and burdock root, sautéed red and yellow peppers and glossy cherry tomatoes. Her small lunchbox was packed with vibrant, vegetable-based dishes. "Looks delicious." I couldn't help but say what was on my mind. It was such a stark contrast from my dad's plain lunches, clearly made with a lot of care. I felt like I could see the love her family put into it, but Mia gave a small, sheepish smile. "My family runs a farm, so we've got tons of vegetables." "I see. If you want, help yourself, Eric." "Wait, really? Fried chicken's great, but a little balance wouldn't hurt." Without waiting for an answer, Mia placed some of her stir-fry vegetables on top of my rice. Back then, I actually hated burdock root, but that stir-fry was unbelievably good. From that day on, whenever I ate lunch, Mia would quietly join me on the rooftop. We'd share food, swapping my fried chicken for her vegetable dishes. "Wow! Your dad's fried chicken is amazing, Eric. And I really like the stewed potatoes from your place." "Oh, I made those." "What?" "Well, you know, for reasons." The usually lively Mia would always trail off when it came to talking about her family. I never pushed further, because I had my own reasons too. My mom isn't around at home. Oh. Just a week before starting high school, my mom got sick. When my bright and cheerful mom passed away, it felt like all the warmth was sucked out of the Owens household. I was always alone during the day, and even when my dad came home, we only exchanged the bare minimum of words. Deep down, I always felt lonely, but still, I guess hunger doesn't wait. "Eric?" There was one time I intentionally left my lunch at home. It was right after my mom was gone, and I had no appetite. I thought it'd feel satisfying, a bit of revenge against my dad for everything, but that afternoon, I couldn't focus on anything in class or during team practice. My stomach growled constantly, leaving me embarrassed instead. It taught me one thing. No matter what, you need food to keep your strength up. No, that's not it, Eric. What? Eric, that is. I think eating gives you strength. Mia's words shifted my perspective, which had always tended to look backward. From then on, my lunch wasn't something I had to eat to get through the afternoon, but something I wanted to eat to tackle the afternoon. I started getting curious about food and cooking. Today, I packed my own lunch for the first time. Wow, that looks amazing. It looks delicious. It was a huge hassle and didn't go as planned at all, but I kind of enjoyed it. I even thought maybe a job in cooking wouldn't be bad. Like running a diner or something. That sounds awesome. I'd love to go to your diner, Eric. It's not like I've decided yet. Well, if you do, use veggies from my farm. I'll deliver them myself, no question. Yeah. If that happened, I'd get to see Mia all the time. Just the thought of it made this casual idea seem like an incredibly good one. I was probably already in love with her long before I realized it. In the end, after I graduated, I took on a different job. But at 28, I finally made up my mind to quit. I got my culinary license and used my savings to open the diner just 6 months ago. And the results have been hard to bear. That was the best food I've ever had. It's hard to believe you don't get more customers. Yeah. Hearing that was at least some comfort. Honestly, it's a wonder I've lasted 6 months. I definitely can't afford to hire staff, and, to tell the truth, I've even thought about closing the place. So I started to apologize to Mia for coming all the way here only to find out I wasn't hiring anyone. She gave me that same, slightly awkward smile. I didn't come here because I wanted a part-time job. What? But I do have a suggestion for you, Eric. Would you hear me out? A suggestion. She said she wanted to at least repay me for the food and bath. Mia shared an idea with me. It was something that could completely turn around my struggling diner's fortunes. Look for lettuce with a clean cut at the stem and a fresh look all over, that'll be the tastiest. As for tomatoes, check the stems. If they're shriveled or dull, they're not fresh. I see. The next day, Mia took me to the produce market. One by one, she pointed out the freshest and most delicious vegetables on display, with ease and confidence. Her knowledge and sharp eye for vegetables were impressive enough to leave the greengrocer owner speechless. Wow, I never thought I'd meet a young person so knowledgeable about veggies these days. I'm so glad, so I'll throw in a big discount. Oh, thank you so much. With his generosity, we ended up getting loads of fresh vegetables at a bargain price. So, are we using these for a new menu, Mia? Exactly, Eric. Mia hugged a large cabbage with a cheerful smile. As for my paycheck, you can wait until the sales go up. Last night, she had said, please let me work at your diner. She was certain she had an idea that could boost our sales. Oh, and if possible, could I live in as well? Wait, what? Mia had pressed the point, explaining that she had nowhere else to go. So, I ended up hiring her as a part-timer, and somehow I now found myself living under the same roof as my first love. Still, all we need to do is slice these and arrange them on plates. Is this really going to work? Back at the diner, I started feeling uneasy. Following Mia's suggestions, I had bought fresh produce and rearranged the tables completely, but would this really boost our sales? This place has such a comforting atmosphere. I'm sure it'll work. Mia reassured me with a smile. A few days later, I found myself wrestling with a mountain of vegetables in the kitchen. Eric, we're almost out of shredded daikon radish. Roger that. Oh, and more lettuce, tomatoes, and cabbage too. Got it, got it. I was slicing everything in sight as Mia called out orders from the hall. Daikon radish, lettuce, tomatoes, cabbage, and broccoli. I felt like I'd seen a lifetime's worth of vegetables in one day. And the reason for this madness. It's true, Mia was right. I just thought if we offered unlimited fresh vegetables, people would definitely come, she had proposed. At first, I was skeptical, no, I was 90% sure it wouldn't work. I tried to ride the big portions trend and offered hearty dishes as the flagship dish. But it had completely backfired. Nearby restaurants were thriving with large serving menus. So I was convinced that vegetables wouldn't attract anyone. I had agreed only because, with the thought of possibly closing anyway, I figured there was nothing to lose. Wow, this lettuce is so crisp and sweet. The tomato tastes like fruit. I haven't eaten this many veggies in ages, it feels like my body is thanking me. It turned out the diner was packed mostly with women. Everyone was enjoying the carefully selected vegetables Mia had picked out, smiling with satisfaction. Well, it's a hit. Let's call it the delicious fresh veggie buffet. Mia winked at me as she cleared the empty plates. Yeah. I had no choice but to admit it. Thanks to her, the diner had escaped the threat of closing. Most places around here offer filling and affordable meals, but they're usually more geared toward men, right? After closing up on the day, we recorded our highest sales ever. Mia explained over our staff meal. Just a short walk from here, there was a company with a predominantly female workforce. Women want to eat healthy and incorporate more vegetables, but they're busy with work and end up wasting produce they buy. So it's tough to keep up with every day. I overheard them talking about it once while passing by. I see. If we were going to compete with other big portion menus, we'd need something that really grabbed the customer's attention, otherwise, we'd never beat the long-established spots. So, the answer was to boldly change our target. From men who favored hearty meals to health-conscious women. Of course, guys want to eat veggies too sometimes, right? And after filling up on fresh vegetables, the next thing they'll crave is meat or fish? Exactly. So, I think you should prep more fried chicken tomorrow. You're not just saying that because you want it, are you? I teased her. At that, Mia, who had been tossing pieces of fried chicken into her mouth one after another, froze. Well, it's delicious. I'd be sad if there wasn't any left for staff meals. Sure enough, the next day, her prediction was spot on. I'll take the fried chicken set menu. 1 fried chicken set menu for me too. 3 fried chicken set menus in total, please. As word of the vegetable buffet spread, more men started showing up as well. After filling up on the light, fresh veggies, they wanted something rich and hearty, leading them to order our original signature dish, the heaping fried chicken set menu. Ah! Another fried chicken set menu, please. Every time our stock of chicken dwindled, Mia's brows furrowed with dismay. And I struggled to contain my laughter as she peeked out from the kitchen. Before I knew it, a month had flown by. During lunchtime, lines started forming outside the diner every day. We couldn't keep up with produce from just the local greengrocer, so Mia used her family connections to get fresh veggies directly from the farm. This only boosted our reputation further, and Diner Harvest went from the brink of closure to the neighborhood's most popular spot. Mia, go ahead without me. I'm just going to rest here for a bit. Thank you. I'll take you up on that. I slumped onto the table while Mia, looking exhausted, drifted toward the bathroom. This had become our routine after coming back to the apartment. I was grateful, of course, for all the customers, but I'm so tired. Even with my endurance, I was running on empty. This past month had been a whirlwind. Even though I was living with my beautiful high school classmate and spending all my time with her except when we slept, I hadn't had a moment to feel nervous. Mia, how long? How long would she be staying here? As I listened to the sound of shower she was taking, I closed my eyes. I'll just rest until she gets back. But before I knew it, I drifted into a deep sleep. Wake up. Eric, wake up. When I opened my eyes, someone was gently shaking my shoulder. If you sleep here, you'll catch a cold. The voice was soft, kind, and clear, washing over me as I lay slumped on the table. Your voice. What? Your throat. It's completely healed now. I'm glad. She was surprised. I heard her intake of breath, and her hand quickly pulled away from my shoulder. Then, I heard a faint rustling right beside me. Wondering what it was, I finally lifted my head, and what? I was instantly wide awake. Mia! What are you doing? Reflexively, I turned around to face the other way. Because Mia had come out of the bath without wearing pajama pants, which meant her pure white underwear was in plain view. I didn't see anything, I swear. Just, please, hurry up and put them on. It's fine. What? Then, Mia moved around to face me directly, her hand reaching for the buttons on her shirt. I quickly stood up, grabbing her hand. What are you doing? I know we're both exhausted, but I'm doing it on purpose. I don't mind if you see everything, Eric. What? When she looked up, I saw her face on the verge of tears. If it's you, I don't mind anything, because I've loved you for so long. What? I've loved you. Ever since high school, since those days we ate lunch together on the rooftop. Ever since then. I was speechless. Mia placed her hand over mine, pressing it gently against her chest. Through the thin fabric of her pajamas, I could feel the warmth radiating from her body and the fast beat of her heart. Suddenly, my own heart began pounding in sync. There isn't much time. Her quiet murmur snapped me out of it. I shook my hand free and turned away from her. This isn't right. Well, I don't know what's going on with you, Mia, but you'll regret this later. Though I pretended I was saying it for her sake, deep down, I knew it was really for me. I was afraid that if I gave in, our happy days together would end, and I couldn't even bring myself to tell her, I've loved you, too. Let's just go to bed. We're both exhausted. Eric. A single tear slipped down Mia's cheek. A sharp pain struck my chest, and then she gently took my hand, holding it softly. With that familiar, slightly troubled smile, she looked at me, just like always. For the next few days, we worked together with a strained awkwardness between us. Luckily, the diner was incredibly busy. One food review site had ranked us as the top buffet spot in the area. And the customer flow only increased. At least while we were working, we didn't have time to feel awkward. Eric, we're almost out of Japanese mustard greens, and we need more fried chicken set menus too. Got it. I'll get the Japanese mustard greens prepped right away. Mia. Not much time left. What did she really mean by that? I couldn't quite bring myself to ask her directly, so I'd been mulling it over for days, questioning myself. Her tone that night had sounded almost desperate. And then, we somehow made it through another lunch rush. Just as I started prepping for the dinner shift without a moment to breathe. Sorry, but we're closed for lunch. Despite the closed sign out front, someone had come in. The door slid open, and Mia went to greet them, but moments later, her scream echoed into the kitchen. Help! Mia? I rushed out of the kitchen and headed for her, heart racing. And I saw Mia with her wrist gripped tightly by an unfamiliar man. So this is where you've been hiding. Let's go, Mia. No. Let go of her, right now. I stepped in between them, grabbing the man's hand and forcefully pulling it away. With Mia shielded behind me, I glared at him, anger boiling up inside. He looked young, about our age. With an irritatingly smug grin that I couldn't stand. You are the manager here? Well, she's quitting today. What? So, why don't you go ahead and pay her severance and this month's wages right now? I bet you've got enough with all the business here, right? No. The man's smile widened even more as he spoke, and I could feel Mia tense up behind me. Spreading my arms protectively, I stood firm in front of her. Who exactly are you? What an idiot you are. Using a farmer who's a family acquaintance of ours, of course, we'd find you. Or did you actually want us to come get you? What? No. I'm not going back to you, not ever. Mia's face turned pale, and her legs shook. But she still glared defiantly at him. Seeing her courage, I understood what I had to do. Leave. Now. What? I wasn't done talking to Mia. I said, get out. I'm not saying it a third time. I'll call the police. The police? Damn, remember this, Mia. Cursing under his breath, the man shot out of the diner with lightning speed. The moment he left, Mia collapsed to her knees on the floor. Mia. I'm sorry, Eric. She looked up at me with a sad smile. A tear rolled quietly down her cheek. Once her tears had settled, Mia quietly began to tell me her story, piece by piece. It was a story of the incredibly harsh days she had endured. It started when I was in 4th grade. My mom and dad went to heaven together in an accident. With both her parents gone and her grandparents already passed, Mia was left all alone. She had few connections with other relatives and found herself completely alone in the world until a couple approached her at the funeral. If you'd like, you could come live with us. They were distant relatives who introduced themselves as the Harrison family. They told her that if she didn't come with them, she'd have to go into a foster facility. Believing it was better for her to live with them, they were the only ones among her distant relatives willing to take her in. We're farmers. If you want, you could even help us around the farm, they'd said with gentle smiles. Feeling she could trust them, Mia agreed to be adopted. But then, as soon as the adoption was finalized, their attitude changed completely. They said I was just a burden, not part of the family. No. Every day, no matter the weather, Mia was forced to help on the farm as soon as she got home from school. When farm work was done, she had to prepare meals, clean, do laundry. She was treated like a servant, even though she was just a young child. And if that weren't enough, they'd say meat and fish are too good for a freeloader. So I got really good at cooking vegetables. Oh. Mia gave a small, pained smile, but I felt like the world went dark around me. Back in high school, I thought her vegetable-filled lunches were because she loved vegetables. In reality, she hadn't been allowed to eat anything but vegetables. And after high school? I'd heard you were planning to skip college and get a job at a family friend's company. That was a lie. The truth is, I ended up staying to help my uncle and aunt. For over 10 years, they kept working her harder, with endless farm chores and housework each day. With inadequate nutrition, Mia had grown thin and frequently fell ill. And that's when the Harrison couple changed their tune. We're sorry for everything. Go on, eat as much as you like. Oh, don't worry, sweetie. You can even have our portions. Eat up. Their sudden kindness felt strange, and they began giving her meat and fish, even excusing her from chores. It seemed like Mia's health had finally been restored. But it was all for a sinister purpose. Earlier this year, I found out the farm wasn't doing well financially, and they'd accumulated debt. So, they were planning to make me work at a nightlife industry to pay it off. What? When I heard, I couldn't bear it. I escaped from them, using what little money I had hidden away to get as far away as possible. And then I ended up here. It was by chance that she'd found one of my help wanted flyers, a flyer I'd almost forgotten I distributed. When she saw the diner's name, she thought, could it be? Harvest, was that from my last name? Yeah. Actually, I hadn't forgotten the promise we made on that rooftop. When I finally opened my own diner, I borrowed a part of her name. So that maybe we'd meet again someday. I hoped this diner would bring Mia and me together once more. I'm sorry. After hearing all that, it must not be a name you're fond of anymore. No. I think it's wonderful. Besides, if the Harrisons hadn't taken me in, I wouldn't have met you. And now, I get to see you again, so my heart is full. She said this with a genuine and radiant smile. It wasn't the troubled and hesitant smile I was used to. And somehow, seeing it filled me with a sense of unease. Mia. The man earlier, he's my uncle's son. His name is Jack. He must have heard from the farm we buy from that I was working here. They've known my uncle and aunt for a long time. Mia, then why? Why did you go out to buy the vegetables, knowing it might reveal your location? I asked, but Mia only smiled in response. And then, a few days later, That day, none of the vegetables we'd ordered, not even a single cherry tomato, were delivered to the diner. Please, Tyler, tell me why. Wait, what? As she spoke with the farm over the phone, Mia's face grew pale halfway through the call. She put the receiver down with a trembling hand. They said they won't sell us any more vegetables. What? They were furious, accusing us of misleading customers about the origin of our produce and of wasting perfectly good vegetables. What? Our vegetable supplier was indeed a small, unknown farm. But we'd always been upfront about it, and our customers loved the fresh taste. Any leftovers were skillfully incorporated by Mia into our staff meals. So nothing went to waste. In fact, with business booming, we'd rarely had any surplus. Jack. What? It must be Jack and my uncle and aunt spreading these lies. That was the moment. Mia slowly removed her apron. Mia. I'm sorry, Eric. This is my fault, because I didn't go back with Jack that day. I can't stand for this diner to be spoken of so poorly. With a sad smile, Mia turned her back to me and started walking toward the entrance. Mia. Hearing you call my name made me so happy. Honestly, I wanted to belong to you completely. Goodbye. Mia. I chased after her. I held onto her trembling shoulders, stopping her in her tracks. Don't go, please, don't leave. But you said their family is in debt, didn't you? What? She turned back to face me, her cheeks streaked with tears that kept flowing. Handing her the apron she'd just removed, I looked into her tearful face. Let me help. I'm not letting those people take you away. Eric. I gently wiped her tears away with my fingers, feeling a new resolve strengthen within me. I pulled my phone from my apron, took a deep breath. Then, I made a call to a certain person. Hello, it's been a while. Yeah, it's me. That call marked the start of a turning point for us. With our veggie buffet on hold, I decided to temporarily close the diner. It was a painful decision just as business was picking up, but neither Mia nor I was ready to give up. If it comes down to it, I'll go speak directly to Tyler. I'm sure I can clear up this misunderstanding. I'm going with you. But what if Jack shows up while we're gone? What if he does something to the diner? We can always rebuild the diner. But if I let her go alone, I had a horrible feeling we'd never see each other again. That dark premonition was too ominous to voice. I didn't say it out loud, not wanting to make Mia any more anxious. Why don't we get something to eat before we face this? I'll make anything you like. Come to think of it, I haven't eaten anything since morning. Really, anything I want? Of course. Then, even before she could finish, I'd already started preparing. I took out the chicken I had marinated last night and carefully mixed flour and starch in my special blend. All to make the diner's signature fried chicken that she said she loved so much. After we devoured a heaping platter of fried chicken together and finished cleaning up, we decided to go all out and deep clean the kitchen. And that's when he walked through the door. Figured if I waited long enough at Anderson Farm, you'd show up eventually. Good thing I came over here, right, Mia? With a nasty grin, Jack barged into the diner. Mia's body tensed for a moment. But after taking a deep breath, she walked toward him of her own accord. Leave. I'm not going back with you. Ungrateful brat. My parents took you in like their own, even though you were practically a stranger. I even treated you like a little sister. And now, as soon as there's debt, you abandon us? Are you talking about the time you shoved me into a rice paddy? Or when you burned the birthday gift my friend gave me? Or maybe when you left me in the mountains where bears were known to roam? He couldn't say anything. As Mia calmly listed these incidents, anger boiled up inside me, ready to burst. Mia turned and gave me a reassuring smile, as if to say, it's okay. Her calmness helped me regain my composure. Was it you? The one spreading false rumors and blocking the vegetable deliveries to this diner? Yeah, that was me. I couldn't stand seeing profits going to some outsider's farm when we have plenty of veggies of our own. He replied shamelessly, even a bit smug. He added, grinning slyly, if you give me a back, I might consider selling to you again. Without missing a beat, Mia and I responded in unison. No, thanks. Neither do I. What? Honestly, Harrison Farms vegetables aren't worth it. They're full of weeds, no one bothers with proper watering or fertilizing. And everyone spends harvest season slacking off, so all you're left with is poor quality produce. That's why no other store wants it. I would rather stop a vegetable buffet than trade it for Mia. I'm sure sales would drop dramatically, but I'll see what I can do. If the alternative means doing business with you, I'd rather let this diner sit empty. You little. Jack's face flushed, his shoulders trembling in anger as he glared between us. Finally, his stare fixed on Mia, and that's when I stepped forward from behind the counter. Did you buy that watch with all that debt? Or were you planning for Mia to pay it off, so you started spending money you didn't have? What? When I pointed at his wrist, Jack's mouth dropped open. There, around his wrist, was a watch encircled with jewels around the face, an unmistakably expensive piece. Something doesn't add up. For someone in debt, that watch, that necklace, and those rings all look pretty extravagant. Where's the money coming from? Like it matters where it's from. Just give me back Mia, she's going to work for us until that debt is gone. People who cover themselves in gaudy jewelry like that usually have something they're hiding, or so I've heard. Seems accurate to me. Enough with this nonsense. You're just spouting a bunch of crap. Eric. In a fit of rage, Jack clenched his right hand into a fist and swung it at me. With a voice like a scream, Mia called my name. Both of them must have thought that the bejeweled, heavy ring on his hand was about to slam into my cheek. Hey, stop! It's breaking! What? The one screaming in pain wasn't me. It was Jack, with his arm twisted painfully behind his back as I pinned him to the floor. No way, what just happened? I didn't see a thing. Mia's eyes widened as she saw me pinning Jack to the floor. And no wonder, just before his punch could land, I dropped my stance and charged at him. In the next moment, I grabbed his arm and, with my full weight, forced him down to the ground. It all happened in less than a second. Stay down unless you really want it broken. Okay. I'll stay down, but who the hell are you? Me? I'm a former police officer. When I said that, both Jack and Mia fell silent, simultaneously letting out a stunned, huh? At that moment, the sound of a police car grew closer. Jack turned a shade paler beneath me. By now, your parents are probably being brought in too. Why? The investigation is already complete. We know you and your parents have been running scams together. No. Jack slumped as the officers entered, and I handed him over to the detectives. As he was escorted into the police car, another man stepped into the diner. Still sharp as ever, huh? That detective's intuition of yours, how'd you know that guy would be here? Years of experience. The silver-haired man gave that blunt reply and nothing more. It was my father, a former detective, who had predicted Jack would show up here and called in support from the police station. What's going on? Seeing Mia's confusion, I explained the truth. Before I quit my former job and became the owner of this diner, I was a police officer stationed at a local precinct. From my experience and instincts from my time on the force, I had a gut feeling that Jack might be involved in something shady. So, I asked my father to use his old contacts and look into Jack and the Harrison family. It turned out my hunch was right. They were part of a scam targeting elderly people in rural areas, making enough money to live lavishly despite their supposed debt. The police had already been investigating them as a family-run group of fraudsters. Thanks, Dad. Now Mia is free from them. she can finally live her life without being tied down. Don't forget to retake the police entrance exam. Yeah. That was our deal. I'm going back to being a police officer. When I nodded at my father, Mia gasped and covered her mouth with her hand, saying, "What? What do you mean, Eric?" "I made a deal with him," I said. "In exchange for his help, I promised to go back to being a cop." "Isn't that right, Dad? I didn't raise you to work in this kind of job. You should be satisfied now." "Yeah." I nodded as I took off my apron. Then, I handed it to Mia, who stood there in stunned silence. "If it's all right with you, can I trust you to take care of this diner?" "What?" "I'll go with you to talk to Tyler. If I tell him I'm a former cop planning to go back on duty, he might be more willing to listen." "So, when you told me not to leave, this is what you meant, leaving me behind." "It's the same for me." Just as Mia revealed her location to the farmers to help the diner, I wanted to protect her. For me, going back to the police force was a small price to pay for that. "I want you to be happy from now on. Because I've always loved you too, Mia." "That's unfair, telling me that now." Tears dripped onto the floor beneath her as she lowered her head. But when she looked up again, no longer crying, she fixed her gaze firmly on my father. "Mr. Owens, I have one request." "What is it?" "Could you try one last meal that Eric has cooked?" "What?" To my surprise, Mia handed the apron back to me. Then, grabbing my arm, she pulled me toward the kitchen. "Mia, make that dish, Eric. I know he'll understand. That dish." Following her lead, I started cooking. I glanced over, surprised to see my gruff father sitting quietly at the counter. About 10 minutes later, when the dish was ready, Mia carried the tray over to my father. "Here you go. Our special fried chicken set menu." A plate piled high with large, crispy pieces of fried chicken sat in front of him. The only side dish was a bowl of rice. There was no soup or pickled vegetables. It was a simple, no-frills meal, and that's what made it the signature dish of Diner Harvest. "This is..." My father muttered quietly without even picking up his chopsticks. I knew he'd recognize it. "Because this dish is..." "Do you remember, Dad? When I was in high school, you always made my lunches." "Yeah. You'd come home late at night and leave the house earlier than me in the morning. But no matter how busy you were, unless you were on overnight duty, you always made sure I had a packed lunch. Now that I've worked as a cop, I finally understand how hard that must have been for you." "That's true. I feel bad saying this, but there were times I was embarrassed by those lunches. It was always just rice and fried chicken, but he made those lunches for me." Back when my mother was still alive, I told her, "Fried chicken is my favorite thing in the world." So, despite having no experience with cooking, he made fried chicken for me every day to cheer me up. When I realized that what had once been an embarrassing memory became the most precious one of my life. Thank you, Dad. The person I am today is because of those lunches. Eric, I wanted to show my gratitude, so I became a police officer to live up to your expectations. And because I became a cop, I found my true dream. I wanted to make people smile with the fried chicken you made, the best in the world." He was speechless. With wide eyes and trembling hands, my father picked up his chopsticks. Then he grabbed the top piece of fried chicken and, as soon as he took a bite, "Maggie." A single tear slipped from my father's eye as he softly uttered the name of my late mother. "Maggie is my mother's name." "Of course," I thought, smiling. "Because you made it with Mom's recipe." And this time, I recreated it from my memory. It's just like hers. Maggie's taste, exactly. The chopsticks fell from his hands as he covered his face, tears flowing freely. Losing my mother had hurt him more than anyone. Though he rarely showed his emotions, he had loved her more than anything. "You're amazing, you know that?" He lifted his head and quietly praised me. He was amazed by how I'd recreated my mother's fried chicken. And also he was amazed by the fact that I was walking the path I'd chosen for myself. "It's incredible," he said, finally acknowledging my efforts. "I promised Maggie, your mother, at her funeral that I would raise you into a fine man, even on my own. Even though all I knew about your favorite food was that you liked fried chicken. Dad, I thought making you follow in my footsteps as a cop was the way to fulfill that promise. But it seems that was just my selfishness." For the first time, I saw my father smile as he picked up his chopsticks again. In no time, he had devoured the fried chicken and rice, then stood up and placed a hand on my shoulder. "Do what you want, Eric. If this is the path you've chosen, then keep walking it." "Dad, are you sure about the promise? A diner is just as respectable a job, you and Mia taught me that." Then, turning to Mia, my father bowed his head. "Please, continue to take care of my son." "Of course, right, Eric?" Mia, wiping away her tears, stood by my side. As I fought back my own tears, I bowed my head to my father and said, "Thank you." "All right, let's start fresh and keep going strong." "You got it." The next morning, we stood in the diner, ready to face the day with renewed determination. Together, Mia and I were going to talk to Tyler. We would explain the misunderstanding, however many times it took for him to understand. Nodding to each other when we opened the door to leave. The two of us froze, both saying, "Huh?" at the same time. Could it be? A small truck had appeared in front of the diner. Its bed piled high with what looked like the freshest vegetables. An elderly man stepped out of the truck, raising a hand toward us. "Mia, I brought you some vegetables. Will you use them again?" "Tyler, why?" "Well, you see." With an apologetic expression, Tyler explained the reason. He had recently found out that Mia was the daughter of the Lawson couple. "You mean, my parents?" "Exactly." I was shocked to learn that they passed away more than 20 years ago. They helped me out so much back in the day. Mia's parents had both been lawyers, running their own law firm. Tyler had once been tricked by an acquaintance and was on the verge of losing his farm. It was Mia's parents who helped him and his family avoid that disaster. Such wonderful people. And to think that Mia, who ended up with the Harrison family, was actually the Lawson's daughter. You never know how people are connected in life. Yes, really. With tears in her eyes, Mia stood beside me as Tyler apologized, surprising me with the unexpected connection. He admitted to believing the lies and letting his anger cloud his judgment. He apologized for the cruel words he had spoken to Mia, the daughter of the people who had once helped him, and for not realizing the long years of suffering Mia had endured, failing to help her when she needed it most. "I'm truly sorry. From now on, I'll grow even better vegetables for the two of you. I'll make sure the best produce of the season always goes straight to this diner. Let that be my way of making amends, if you'll allow it." "Yes, thank you." Tears flowed freely as Mia quietly took my hand. I squeezed her hand in return and nodded firmly. And just like that, Diner Harvest was once again able to serve the freshest vegetables, all approved by Mia, who had a keen eye for quality. On the day we relaunched our buffet, a long line of eager customers awaited us. Every day after that, the diner continued to overflow with smiling faces. I've been thinking, maybe everything I went through as Mia Harrison was for this day, for this moment. Mia turned toward me with a gentle smile. The body that had been so thin and frail when we reunited had, over the past 2 years, filled out to a healthy and fuller figure. Her hair and skin now glowed with vitality, and today, she was more radiant than ever. I stood there, momentarily stunned, unable to take my eyes off her. "Come on, Eric, pull it together. The ceremony is about to start." Yeah. Today was our wedding day. It was a very small ceremony, with just my father and a few close friends who had been there for us. But Mia looked so stunning in her wedding dress. I was in the waiting room, completely overwhelmed with nerves. If seeing you like this is thanks to all we've been through, then maybe it wasn't all bad after all. Don't say that. I still can't forgive them. It doesn't matter if it's the past or the future. I never want you to go through anything like that again, Mia. I'm sorry. Mia laughed softly and gently placed a hand on her stomach. It's okay, you'll be such a wonderful dad, and I know you'll protect us. We're ready to meet you soon, aren't we? In a few months, we were expecting a new addition to our family. Kneeling beside Mia, I spoke to the child growing inside her. There would be tough times ahead, moments that would make us want to cry, but as long as we were together, we'd get through anything. All right, let's go. Dad and everyone else are waiting for us. Yes. Mia took my hand and stood up from her chair. Together, we started walking down the hallway that led to the ceremony. Eric. I'm so happy. I am too, Mia. We smiled at each other, filled with joy, knowing that tomorrow, the next day, and every day after would be just as bright. Life is full of both good and bad moments. Just when you think everything's going smoothly, you can suddenly be plunged into the depths. And when you feel like it's all over, sometimes an unexpected hand reaches out to lift you back up. It's the unpredictability that makes life interesting. Even if it doesn't go well for today, just give a chance for tomorrow. Because, as it was for me, even bitter memories can one day become cherished treasures.